Hi everyone, so today's presentation is going to be on Perceptual Confirmation by Rania Jubara and Lindsay Korlach. So to start off, the definition of perceptual confirmation is the tendency for people to see what they expect to see, and it definitely applies in studies when observers perceive what they already expect to happen, and that's why they accept their hypothesis. So it definitely leads to self-fulfilling prophecy, which is causing what you had already expected to happen. So you cause it because you expected it to happen. And it also leads to stereotyping, but not only does it lead to stereotyping, but it can also lead to an internalized stereotype threat, which means that by expecting others to see you a certain way and trying to avoid that stereotype, you actually end up perpetuating it. So how does it work? People interpret information in ways that support their preconceived notions and stereotypes. So schemas already had will affect how you perceive things in the future, and it can elicit negative behavior as previous negative experiences will impact judgment on future experiences. So a couple of just quick real-world examples that happen every day of perceptual confirmation could be thinking of being about to meet someone and you know that they stayed in a mental hospital, so you expect them to act crazy or to be crazy, or perceiving a black child from a poor neighborhood as less educated, without having any real basis for that judgment other than the area that they come from. Another one that I think happens pretty often would be assuming your partner is cheating because you see an interaction that they have with somebody else and you jump to conclusions. So those are a couple of examples of seeing what you want to see, even though so here is a quick video.
Okay, in this video, I'm going to quickly go over the perception process. This has been in your readings, but students tend to have a lot of trouble with the perception process. So I just want to go over it very quickly, just to add some extra examples and kind of simplify it for you so you see where we're coming from here. So the perception process, perception is just basically how we make sense of things, how we make judgments about things, how we interpret our world. And we kind of all go through this frame of reference, and we all have a different frame of reference based on our backgrounds, our environments, our culture. There's a lot of different factors here. So that's why it's so easy to miscommunicate or have errors in perceptions, because everybody's coming from different past experiences. So let's go through the process. The first step is selection. In the selection process, we're choosing something to focus on. So, for example, I'm in a room right now. There's a lot of things going on in here. For pretend, I'm actually in a room all by myself right now. But for pretend purposes, I'm in a room. There's a lot of things going on in the room. There's other students. There's my instructor in the front. There's people walking down the hallway. Somebody's phone is going off. There's a lot of things going on in the room. I need to focus on one thing. So I'm going to choose to select to focus on my instructor because I'm in class right now. And not focus on the people in the hallway, not focus on the other students. Really, in terms of selection, you can really only focus on one thing at a time. And again, this process happens so fast in your brain, you don't even really think about it. But you're really only focusing on one thing at a time. So those of you who think you're really good at multitasking, you're really good at just shifting attention from one thing to another. But we're not really multitasking. We're really only focusing and selecting one thing at a time to perceive. So I'm watching my instructor, and I'm tuning out everything else in the room. I'm going to focus, and I'm going to make a perception about my instructor. So now I move to organization. And in the organization step, I'm going to really analyze what is it that the instructor is doing in this stage. And then I'm going to put it in my brain, compare it to my past experiences. Now, how do we organize this information in our brain? In our readings, it talks a lot about things like proximity, similarity, differences. We kind of have ways we just organize things in general. I really like the readings and how they talk about that we one of the easiest ways for us to perceive and organize is by looking at that idea of proximity. If two people are close together, we kind of just make that interpretation or assumption that they must be together in some sort, or they know each other. We just make that assumption automatically. So like the idea of proximity, we organize, they're close together. That's the organization. They must be together. That's our interpretation. So back.
Okay, and then connections not only with perceptual confirmation in the textbook, but also how it applies to everyday actions as well. It will definitely affect the social interactions that you make with your friends, your family, how you choose your romantic partners. It's all affected by it, because while you have ideas in your head about how these interactions are going to play out, it isn't always the reality. And there also is a link with perceptual confirmation and the attachment theory, which basically you can link it by thinking that as a child we were rejected more than accepted, and if our behavior is consistent as adults, we would have a higher sensitivity to being rejected. Or, for example, let's say your caregiver was avoidant when you were a child. As you grow up, your behavior will be highly sensitive to avoidance styles when it comes to romantic partners, friends, bosses, anything in that social category. And this definitely affects how you make friends and how you attract or choose your partners.